Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So in this video, we're going to talk about how it's actually okay to have a healthy dose of fear of failure, right? In fact, it's actually helpful. And I've noticed in life that the people who don't have any sort of fear of failure and who think everything is going to be okay are the ones who suffer, right? And there's a concept in a book called Great by Choice. I don't know if you ever heard of Jim Collins, but he's a business writer. But he has a concept called productive paranoia, which I'm going to go into soon. In fact, I've actually never read this book. The only reason I know is because I used to hear like speakers talk about like other people. It's like, yeah, I read this book, Jim Collins, Great by Choice, and then I was like, interesting, and I just never read it. Right? It's kind of like how I've heard many people talk about Tony Robbins, but I've actually never consumed his content. Right? But so let me tell you why I think I failed many times at life. It's because when I was a kid, everybody actually tried to brainwash me that if I go to college, then my life is set. And so I actually believed that, and I did not have a healthy fear that I might fail in life. And so when the teacher sucked, the student sucked, everybody else sucked. I just thought that there was just going to be a point where someone was actually going to help me, and because there wasn't, I ended up failing many times in life and suffered much more than I should have. Right? Like you ever like depend on people that you think are going to be there for you, and then it turns out they were completely like not there when you needed them the most. It's like, hey, I need your help, and it's like do, like can't, ignore your message, text, Facebook posts, whatever. You know, happens to a lot of people all the time. And this is why, especially my generation, I think we were the very first generation in society where we were told by our elders and parents that everything's just going to be okay. Go to college, right? Like that was kind of like the what we were brainwashed as kids. Like just go to college. Don't even. It doesn't even matter what you study. And then kind of like lemmings off a cliff. We have probably a lot of societal ailments that we didn't have before, whether it's massive debt, depression, loneliness, just a train wreck of disaster. And that's because nobody had like a healthy fear that, hey, if I go through this path in life, I might actually fail, right? And you could totally see this in Gen Z because once upon a time, I actually wanted to mentor, Gen Z people because this is what I was thinking like, hey, like I'm going to teach you all the traps that in life that I can help you avoid because you know once you become an adult, I want you to like be my partner in business or whatever, and then we're gonna slay it, right? Every single Gen Z person that I try to mentor, I kind of failed at it because they just did not. They just thought, they had the same mentality that us millennials had, but I think even worse, where it's like I just have everything's just going to be okay, and I can be sloppy at my work, and it's kind of sad that's just kind of the way that it is, and because they did not have a fear of failure. Nowadays, you can see a lot of TikToks with now like Gen Z adults where it's like, oh my goodness, I'm working 4 jobs and I didn't know that life would be this hard, right? I had to suffer through that, and I would not want anybody to ever go through what I did, right? I came from a rich neighborhood, but I feel like I'm like the Vanderbilts. I don't know if you ever know like the difference between the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers, but basically the Rockefellers had generational wealth that from generation to generation they were able to keep their wealth, whereas the Vanderbilts were like the richest family in America. And then in one generation they lost it all. And sometimes I felt like that because it's like I came from a rich area and neighborhood and supposedly good schools. Why didn't anybody teach me like how to be an adult, right? Like why didn't and it was just like me suffering, right? And this is kind of talked about in the book Jim Collins Great by Choice. So there's a concept here called productive paranoia. And right, it says productive paranoia is a concept developed in the book Great by Choice. The only mistakes you can learn from are the ones you survive. Leaders who stave off decline and navigate turbulence assume that conditions can unexpectedly change violently and fast. They obsessively ask, what if? By preparing ahead of time, building reserves, preserving a margin of safety, bounding risk, and honing their discipline in good times and bad, they handle disruptions from a position of strength and flexibility, right? And they kind of talk about Microsoft and how the leaders of Microsoft always had a fear of failure, other business leaders as well. I'm not going to go through all this, but what I'm saying is this is very different from how your average person like acts in society. Like one of the things I always talk about in this channel is like, oh, in order to get a line of credit, you have to get it before you ever need it, and thus you should prepare now, right? But so many people are like, oh my goodness, like I can't do this velocity banking thing because who's going to lend me a line of credit? It's like that's exactly the point. So you should have prepared way before you ever needed it. But so many people, they're just like, oh, everything's going to be fine. They get into debt and then they get screwed over, and they're like, I can't do this velocity banking thing, right? But you got to have a little bit of fear. And this is the same thing for me. When I first started this YouTube channel, you know, I didn't think it was going to be a success at all. And one of the reasons that I guess I kind of put a handicap on this channel because of the name was just like, because this channel has a slightly odd name, I got to work harder than everyone else to make it like up and running, right? So I had this productive paranoia that nobody's going to watch this channel, and then next thing I know, I'm making $300 a month on YouTube ad revenue. And I don't know if you ever seen behind the scenes before, or I always like to show this off. But you go here, and then let me go to the YouTube studio, right? And then if I go in here, well, this is fluctuated, but about $300 a month. In fact, my last YouTube paycheck was about 320. I probably need to flex that, but yeah. So again, productive paranoia. Always feel like, hey, you're gonna fail, so you work hard at it and don't relax, right? And I'm not saying that you can't actually enjoy the fruits of your labor, but way too many people like life hits them at a train wreck, and they have no idea why, because every time like I try to warn them, hey, like you're gonna get screwed by the system, you need to prepare, learn financial literacy concepts or whatever, and nobody seems to care. In fact, if I type in TikTok inflation rate, you know, all these people all these people did not prepare, and I pretty much guarantee you that they did not have a fear of paranoia, that life was hard, right? And maybe sometimes I'm glad that I went through the hard times. I'm gonna be honest with you, it wasn't fun during that time, but I think it's what kept me. I don't want to say prepared. I don't know if that's the right word, but right now, I remember for the past couple of years, I just kind of relaxed and did absolutely nothing, and did not. I didn't. Well, what I do, I just kind of relaxed, right? All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta mentorship. So it's very healthy to have a fear of failure. And I always assume that if you don't have it, you're headed for a train wreck, right? So I always assume that whatever I do, I'm going to fail. And that's what kind of makes me keep wanting to work hard. Well, not that hard, to be honest, but at least wanting to work, upload a video, because I was like, hey, this YouTube channel, who's going to watch this? So I got to upload another video, right? Although people are like addicted to the content. I already know that. All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta mentorship. What do you think? Do you think that it's healthy to have failure? And do you think the reason why, um, the modern adult generations are failing is because they just think everything's going to be okay? Like, do you think that? I certainly do. All right. Well, have a great day, and we'll speak next time.